Hello, everybody. Welcome to this JAWS webinar. Seems like it's been a long time since we've been with you to do one of these. Today, we're going to update your slide guide using JAWS and PowerPoint. So welcome to this webinar, Update Your Slide Guide, JAWS with PowerPoint. Thank you for joining us today. This is a more advanced webinar. This is not a beginner webinar on PowerPoint. We sent out a link to that, and hopefully you were able to catch that before this. If not, obviously, stick with us, but it's going to help if you've had some of the basics in JAWS and PowerPoint. Let's get started. Betsy Ann's going to put our poll questions up for you, and we're going to start with those. We want to know our basic demographic questions. Of course, to start, we want to know what your job title is. We want to know where you are joining us from today and how you heard about the webinar. In addition to that, there are a couple of additional content questions. We want to know your level of comfort with JAWS and PowerPoint. So are you not comfortable? Are you somewhat comfortable? Or are you very comfortable? Obviously, if you're not comfortable, that would be about the same as not applicable. Next question, how often do you use PowerPoint? Is it at least once a week, at least once a month, only when needed, or not applicable? And then our last question, I'm going to explain this one a little bit. Do you use PowerPoint to create slides, read presentations, or present content to an audience? Check all that apply. By create slides, we mean just that. You sit down, you type them up, you add the stuff to the slides, you make the presentation, you create it yourself. If you do that, pick that choice. If you read presentations, that means you may or may not be creating them, but if you check read presentations, you are getting them, you are looking at them and reading content, whether it's for testing purposes or just getting somebody else's slides, you're just reading them. If you present content, then you are the one, whether you wrote it or not, you're the one making the presentation of the content that was created by someone. So maybe you do all of those, maybe it's not applicable to you and you do none of those, but pick all that apply. So that should be clear. You create it, you read it, you present it, or you don't do any of them. Let's get to our ground rules and our housekeeping here. There's a link to a handout that Elizabeth has put together. That's going to be put in the chat on multiple occasions for you. Please place your questions in the chat. That will at times be off during demos, but there'll be plenty of opportunities to get your questions in, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can. 1.5 hours ACV REP credit. That code will be coming up in a little bit. We do have our closed captioning available. Please take advantage of that if you wish. Joining us, as always, on all of these webinars on JAWS, Elizabeth Whitaker from Vispero, a technical writer, webinar presenter, trainer, all of the above. Been doing this for us for a while, and we just appreciate the expertise that she brings on all of these topics with JAWS. Talk about some challenges here. There's definitely some unique ones. Many folks are quite intimidated trying to use PowerPoint with JAWS because of the visual nature of PowerPoint and the belief that JAWS isn't compatible with PowerPoint in part or in whole. Using themes and animations is tough. There's no real descriptions of how your selections impact your PowerPoint slide presentation. There's a perceived lack of resources for learning PowerPoint with JAWS. And we're going to work on dispelling those for you today. Our learning objectives. So we're going to learn 3 tasks that can be completed in the thumbnails tab. That's an extremely important tab in PowerPoint. We're going to identify 3 steps for inserting a URL into a slide. We'll list 3 steps to display the alt text pane and talk about how important alt text is for your images. And we'll identify 4 keyboard commands for inserting a video onto a slide.
All right. Thank you, Betsy Ann. Thank you, Paul. And thanks as always to APH for letting me be here today. I always really enjoy doing these. So like Paul and Betsy Ann have said, and like you guys revealed in the poll questions, PowerPoint is widely used. I mean, even if you don't use it frequently to create presentations, it's always great to have resources on hand for when you do need it. So just going to go over some things now. This, as Betsy Ann and Paul also said a little earlier, we did do a previous webinar on how to create a presentation. So if you need some help with that, I encourage you to go back and look at that. And then if you have any questions, anything on what we covered today or any other PowerPoint questions as a JAWS user, or if you're instructing others on how to create PowerPoints with JAWS, definitely send us an email, and we'll be talking about this email address again at the end, but you can send it to training@vispero.com, and I will repeat that again. So this webinar is going to focus on more advanced features. Now, even if you don't use PowerPoint often, these are still features that will be very useful to you. Now, what I'm going to be demonstrating these as well today, and what I really want to go over is how to use these features as a JAWS user. It's not so much how to create an accessible presentation, although that is very, very important, but this is more as a JAWS user. How do you incorporate these features? So let's talk about what we'll cover. I'm going to start out by talking about how to add, remove, and delete slides from the slide thumbnails pane and why that's a very important pane. We'll talk about how to add a video to a slide, how to insert a URL to a slide, how to add alt text to images and what that means, how to manage slide transitions, how to use themes and animations, and then as a bonus, I want to talk a little bit about the slide sorter, what that is and how you can use it. All right, so if you have Microsoft Office 365, you will have the latest version of PowerPoint. And I do want to let you know that sometimes, for example, between PowerPoint 2016 and the current Office 365 versions, there will be some differences. So if you, after this webinar, if you go back and you try the things from the handout, or you try the things that we talked about here today in the webinar, which are the same tasks, but whether you're working from listening to an archive of the webinar and going through these tasks one at a time, or you're doing it from the handout, if you encounter some differences, just know that some of the keyboard commands, chances are the keyboard commands will be the same, but there may be some differences. And so if you have any questions, just send us an email and we might be able to help you sort that out. So Microsoft PowerPoint, of course, is included in the Office suite of applications. And though it is a very visual application and it's used for very visual purposes, it is accessible with JAWS. You can create, you can read, you can incorporate visual features, even as someone who is a JAWS user. All right, so I want to start out by talking a little bit about how to add and move slides around, how to delete them using the thumbnails pane and what this pane is. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Before we do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about navigation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you guys. So I want you to be able to see the screen, those of you who can see it, and you're also going to hear JAWS so that you can actually follow along and know what's going on here. So and all right, let's try this again. All right, so I'm going to share the sound here, and here we go.
Mute. Update your slide. Presentation one.
I'm going to flip over here.
Alt space. Menu.
All right, so I have a blank presentation. Can you guys see the screen and hear JAWS speaking there?
Yes, we've got both.
Okay, good, thanks. All right, so I have a blank presentation. We're going to be working with this presentation and adding things to it. And I have, I think, 5 slides here. So when you open a presentation or when you create a new one, you're going to be placed in the slide area. This is the place where you can add content to a slide. If you press the F6 key by itself, you will navigate to different areas on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now.
F6, toolbar, spell check no errors button.
So this took us to a toolbar, which we can navigate with our arrow keys. Here I'm going to use right arrow.
Accessibility checker, accessibility.
So there's an accessibility checker, which will help you check the accessibility of your PowerPoint.
Notes button.
Notes.
Normal tab.
And we are in normal view. So that is just the toolbar that you can access. I'm going to press F6 again.
F6, upper ribbon, ribbon.
And there are ribbons. Press it again.
F6, slide thumbnails tab.
And it's going to say slide thumbnails tab. I've seen this referred to as a tab or as a pane. So we're here on the slide thumbnails tab. Now, if I press F6 again,
F6, slide area.
I am back on the slide area. The reason I want to show you that is that you can actually, because when you're navigating around with F6, you have the thumbnails pane right before you get back to the slide area. You can actually press Shift F6 to reverse that navigation.
Shift F6, slide thumbnails tab.
And go right back to that slide thumbnails pane. So why is that important? If you're in the slide thumbnails pane here, you can use your up and down arrow keys to navigate through the different slides. So I'll press up arrow. I think
slide 1.
We're on slide 1, and it's going to say slide 1 because these slides don't have titles yet. And I'm pressing, maybe I don't actually have another slide here. Let's add another one.
Slide 3.
Okay, there we go. There were some. Okay, some. Jaws just stopped talking for a second. All right, sometimes that happens. When that happens, just give it a second, and sometimes it just needs to catch up.
Slide 2. Slide 1.
All right, so we have a bunch of slides here that are not titled, and you can navigate these using your up and down arrow keys. Now, I'm actually using a Braille display. For those of you who might be using a Braille display, you'll see it'll say slide 1 of 6. And if I down arrow
slide 2
and you're reading on your Braille display, it'll say slide 2 of 6. That's really important information to know as well. Sometimes you can also use other JAWS keyboard commands to tell you things. For example, I can press insert up arrow.
Slide 2, 2 of 6.
And it actually said 2 of 6. So if you want to know, if you're in the thumbnails pane and you want to know how many slides there are there, just press insert up arrow. That is a command. It's a JAWS command to read the current line.
Slide 2, 2 of 6.
And there you go. All right, so I can navigate through these slides with my arrow keys, and I can copy them, I can cut them, I can move them. Let's go ahead and add content to a couple of them here. I'm going to go up to slide 1. And I don't know why JAWS is not announcing that, but I think I'm on slide 2 according to the Braille display. Oh no, I'm on slide 1. All right.
Slide 1.
And I just used insert up arrow. All right, so from here, this is my favorite aspect of this thumbnails pane, because from here, my focus is on slide 1. It read slide 1 to me. I can press F6.
F6, slide area.
And I'm on the slide area. So from here, I can tab.
Center title placeholder.
And I can enter here to open this title area.
Enter, edit.
And I can type
test
edit, presentation. Edit. I know that's not a real exciting title, but it works. All right, when I'm finished, I can press escape.
Escape, selected, test presentation.
And what that does is it exits the area where you can type. It goes back to where you can navigate using your tab key to the different areas of the slide. Otherwise, you would be pressing tab and it would enter, you would just be stuck in that edit part. All right, so I'm going to tab.
Subtitle placeholder. Center title placeholder, level 1, test presentation.
And it reads it to me, and then we have
subtitle placeholder.
Subtitle placeholder, we don't need that right now. All right, so now that we've titled this slide, let's press Shift F6. I'm sorry, Shift F6 to go back to the
Shift
thumbnails pane.
F6, slide thumbnails tab.
All right, so we're on the slide thumbnails pane, and I can press insert up arrow,
Test presentation slide.
and it just read that to me. And notice this time, instead of saying slide 1, it said test presentation slide. All right, so that's obviously our title, but
Slide 2.
let's title this one. I'm going to title a couple more. I'm going to hit F6. I press down arrow to move to slide 2. I hit F6.
F6, slide area.
And I'm going to tab.
Title placeholder.
And this is a regular slide, so I'm just going to give it a title.
Enter, edit.
And I'm just going to call it add video, because that's what we're going to do next.
Escape, selected.
All right, and I'm not going to add any content at this point, but if I was going to, I would tab.
Object placeholder.
And I would press enter on the object placeholder and add that content. All right, so if I press Shift F6.
Shift F6, slide thumbnails tab.
We're back here on the slide thumbnails pane.
Add a video slide.
And I heard a mistake there, but that's okay. I'm going to down arrow to slide 3.
Slide 3.
And if I press Shift Tab, and I'm doing this for a reason, I want to show you some things we can do here. So if I press F6.
F6.
I'm back in the slide area. Let's title this one.
Title placeholder. Enter, edit.
And I'm going to type insert hyperlink.
Insert hyperlink.
And I'll press escape.
Escape. Select.
Okay, now we have some slides with a title. So now we can work with these. So let's press Shift F6 and go back.
Shift F6, slide thumbnails tab.
To the slide thumbnails tab. And I wanted to include these things, adding titles and things for anyone out there who is brand new to using PowerPoint with JAWS. All right, so that you kind of do have an idea of how to navigate and enter that information. All right, so now let's focus just on the slide thumbnails pane. I'm going to press up arrow.
Add a video slide. Test presentation slide.
All right. If I press down arrow, let's say I wanted to switch these two slides below here. I want to have the insert a hyperlink before add a video.
Add a video slide. Insert hyperlink slide.
I could copy either one of them. It doesn't matter. I could press Control C. I don't have to select it. I'm on the slide. I'm going to press Control X. Actually, Control C would copy. Control X.
Leaving ribbons. Overwrite clipboard dialog.
And I was using the clipboard earlier, so you won't encounter this.
Yes.
However,
cut selection.
All right, so it says cut selection to clipboard. I was using a JAWS feature earlier, and that's why it was asking if I wanted to override the clipboard. What it would normally do is it would just cut that slide to the clipboard. Okay, so now let's arrow up and see what we have.
Add a video slide. Slide 3.
Now, what it did is it renumbered the slides here because it recognizes there's one fewer. So it places me on the slide below the one I just cut. So if I want to paste this slide,
add a video slide.
Before add a video, I'm just going to go up to add a video slide. I'm going to press Control V as in Victor.
Pasted from clipboard. Insert slide. Insert hyperlink. Add a video slide.
Oh, and I did that wrong. I did that wrong. All right. So once again,
use destination. Escape.
We have the something to be aware of when you paste is something called the paste table that comes up and gives you options. Just press escape if you don't want to use those, like I didn't want to use those.
Test presentation slide.
All right, so here we have test presentation slide.
Add a video slide.
Add a video.
Insert hyperlink.
And insert hyperlink. All right, so what we actually wanted to do, it actually pastes it below the slide that you're on. So that was my mistake. Sorry about that. So let's cut it again. Let's use Control X as an X-ray.
Cut selection to clipboard.
And now let's up arrow.
Add a video slide. Test presentation slide.
All right, so focus is on the test presentation slide. If I paste here.
Pasted from clipboard. Insert hyperlink slide.
Here we are on insert hyperlink slide. So now let's up arrow.
Test presentation slide. Test presentation slide.
Down.
1 of 6. Insert hyperlink slide. Add a video slide.
And there we have it. and it's wanting to bring up that paste recovery table again. So I'm going to press escape a few times.
Escape.
You can actually turn that off. It's probably something I need to do. And then if we down arrow, we have the rest of the slides.
Slide 4. Slide 5. Slide 6.
And we have slide 6. So what you do, let me just kind of recap this, especially since I pasted in the wrong place. You cut, if you want to move a slide, you cut the slide you want to move. You go to the slide above where you want to paste it. So I wanted to paste it above the video slide. I had to go to the slide above that and press Control V, and it will paste it there. And if you're not sure, you can always move them around. You know, if you accidentally paste it in the wrong place, you can always move them around. If you want to delete a slide, you can press delete.
Blank. Slide 5.
And it deletes it. And now it indicates that I only have 5 slides here. So another really neat thing you can do is if you have a slide that you use frequently, like if you have an entry slide or introduction slide that you use for every presentation you give, you can copy it from one presentation. You just go to the thumbnails pane, copy it, and then you come back over here to your new presentation and you paste it in. So that is a little bit about navigating PowerPoint and how you use the F6 key to get to the different areas, how you can use Shift F6 if you're in the slide area to go back to the slide thumbnails pane, and then F6 again to go to the slide area. And whatever slide you have in focus, when you press F6, that is going to be, it's going to take you to the slide area for that slide. All right, so now let's pause and see if you guys have any questions about this.
Task switching. Meeting controls.
And this would
gonna-
be a great time for us to
Okay.
toss that poll question
That
out
poll
there
question, yeah.
while these things go up.
Absolutely.
So please add your questions to the chat as you answer this poll question. True or false question this time. The tab key is used to navigate the thumbnails tab in PowerPoint. True or false? The tab key is used to navigate the thumbnails tab in PowerPoint.
All right. And while we are taking this poll question, Elizabeth, we did have one question come in.
Okay.
And the question is, what is that insert hyperlink that you just pressed after completing the last slide? So thinking back to your presentation, maybe we'll just review the insert hyperlink and where that is on PowerPoint.
That one will be coming up in terms of how
Okay.
to insert a hyperlink. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that. I'm going to show you guys how to do that.
Oh, that's great. Excellent.
Yes. Yes.
All right. We're checking if there are any more questions. You'll have more opportunities, of course, as we go through
Oh,
the
yeah.
webinar today for you to ask questions of Elizabeth. All right. Well, looking at the poll questions so far, 57% of you have participated, so feel free to throw in some final answers. For the question true or false, the tab key is used to navigate the thumbnails tab in PowerPoint. 31% said true, 69% said false. Elizabeth, what was the correct response?
It's false. You use the arrow keys to navigate the thumbnails pane.
And all right, thank you for that. And we did have a question come in that wanted to hear what you said again about, for example, using a slide frequently, like an introductory slide.
Sure.
Just to restate that.
Okay, and I'll give you an example of that. So for these presentations here with the APH here, there is an introduction slide that is a presenter slide. And so I have that slide fixed up the way I want it. And so every time I go to create a presentation, you can actually save a slide as a presentation. You can make it the only slide in your presentation, or you could, you know, save several slides that you reuse frequently. So I open that presentation, I go to the thumbnails pane, I locate that presenter slide, and I press Control C, which copies it to the clipboard. Then I go over to my new presentation, go to the thumbnails pane, and I paste it with Control V. So it's Control C as in Charlie and Control V as in Victor. And it's a great way to reuse a slide. if it's something that you're going to be, using in all your presentations and you don't want to have to recreate it every time.
All right, and Debbie, you also had that question about an intro slide. Hopefully that answered your question, but do let us know if you have a follow-up question. All right, well, we're gonna wrap up that poll and hand it back to Elizabeth to continue the presentation.
All right, we're going to talk about now how to insert a video into a slide. So as you know, there are a lot of different types of media that you can have in your slides. And you can insert videos from your computer. You can also insert them from, online. You can maybe a YouTube video. So there are a lot of different ways. I'm going to show you how to insert a video from your device. So I'm going to share my screen again here. All right. Let's make sure I want to share JAWS with you guys. Okay.
Mute. Current. Presentation 1 PowerPoint.
All right.
We've got the PowerPoint and JAWS.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so I want to make sure here I am in the thumbnails pane. I'm going to press F6. I think I am.
F6. Slide area.
All right, that's a slide area. That's a good thing. If you leave PowerPoint, you have it open and you go to another app, it will, of course, like other apps, you'll be exactly where you left off when you come back to it. So I'm going to press Shift F6.
Shift F6. Slide thumbnails tab. Add a video slide.
All right.
Use desktop.
So for some reason that pace recovery table keeps popping up. I'm just going to hit escape a couple of times. So I'm on the slide for adding a video. So if I press F6, I'll go to that slide area.
F6. Slide area. No selection.
And I can tab.
Title placeholder. Level 1. Add a video.
Okay. So I heard my mistake there. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter so that I can edit that.
Enter. Edit. Home.
I can press home and I can press control right arrow to go across here.
Add. Misspelled video. V. Space. Edit. IDEO.
All right.
Video.
So now it reads correctly.
Add a video.
All right. So I can press escape.
Escape. Selected.
So now I have a couple of choices here. I don't want to really add any content to this slide, but I do want to add the video. So I'm going to tab.
Object placeholder.
And I'm on the object placeholder. So from here, I don't have to enter because I'm not going to be entering any text, but I do want to add the video. So you can do this using the keyboard with a keyboard command of Alt-N for the Insert tab, followed by V.
Alt-N, upper ribbon, media toolbar, video button drop-down pressed has pop-up, Alt followed by N, V, T, menu, leaving menus, this device ... All
right, so Josh just said a whole bunch of stuff. Sometimes it takes a second to catch up, but basically what happens there is you press Alt-N, you go to the Insert tab on the ribbon, you press V for video, and now we have a drop-down box that gives us choices, and we're on from this device, and if I down arrow,
V, stock videos ... Alt followed by N, V, S, online videos ... Alt followed by N, V, O.
So we could add stock videos, we could add online videos.
This device ... Alt followed by N, V, T.
And as you can hear, JAWS is telling you the keyboard commands. It's saying Alt followed by N, V, T. Now, I pressed Alt and N together. Most of the time that works, but sometimes if it doesn't, sometimes you do need to press Alt, then let off the Alt key and press N as in Nancy, V as in Victor. And in this case, it said to add a video from a device, or this device, it's going to be T as in Tango. So I think if I press T here though, oh, it did. Okay.
Leaving menus, leaving ribbons, insert video dialog.
So here we have your basic dialog box. Well, I say basic, it's actually a pretty busy dialog box, but it's pretty much the standard dialog box that you would have if you were saving or opening a file, in this case, opening. So if I press Shift Tab.
Items view list box, items view list box, download the JAWS training bundle .mp4, download the JAWS training bundle .mp4, 1 of 1. All
right, so I'm in this folder because it remembers that the last time I went to add a video, this is the video I added. which is fine. That's good. I'm going to make sure that's selected by pressing down arrow.
Download the JAWS training bundle.mp4.
Sometimes JAWS will indicate that's not selected, in which case you can either press an arrow key or you can press the space bar. If you only have one file there, you can press down arrow, but if you have multiple files, just press the space bar. So from here, this is an MP4 file, which is a video. I'm going to press enter.
Enter. Add a video slide. 2 of 5. Video. Design ideas.
All right.
Recommended.
Now it wants to give me some recommendations here. I don't want those right now. I'm going to press escape.
Escape. Add a video slide. 2 of 5. Video. Object level.
All right. So I am on the video. How I know that is because it said video object level. If I want, I can tab around this slide.
Title placeholder. Level 1. Add a video.
I can tab again.
Video.
And it said video. All right. So now that we've added the video, we get to make a few decisions here. We can decide whether during the presentation we want it to play automatically, we want it to play when it's clicked on, or there's also another option called in click sequence, which is very similar, but you can actually create a sequence of things that happen if you have multiple types of content on a slide. For example, if you have it set to advance to the next thing when you hit right arrow, that's when your video is going to play. It's going to play within that sequence. I want it to play automatically. So I'm going to press Alt
Upper ribbon.
J N U.
Video 2. List box. Start list box.
So as a JAWS user, you probably notice that sometimes the ribbon can be a bit cluttered. That's why I'm giving you these keyboard commands. And I certainly don't expect you to remember all of them, but they are in the handout. So I find these to be helpful. If you don't create presentations often, that's fine. You know, just you might want to have them to refer to when you do, because it really is easier. You can locate all of this stuff on the ribbon, but if you have these commands at hand, you know, it kind of makes it easier to get to. You can also use search, Alt Q, and search for the task that you want to do. You can do that in any of the Office products. All right, so here we have a box. We can down arrow through these options.
JNU. Automatically button select.
And the reason JAWS just spoke the keyboard command we used is because I have mine set to, my key echo is set to read words. And so it was trying to catch up there. All right, so let's just down arrow. We can down arrow through these options. And as we down arrow to one, it selects that item. So if you hear all of them, if you hear it say selected, it's going to, you know, could possibly make you think they're all selected. They're not. It's just the current one that you're on.
When clicked on button selected.
So there's when clicked on.
In click sequence button selected.
In click sequence.
Automatically button selected.
Automatically.
When clicked on button selected.
And so let's go back up to automatically.
Automatically button selected.
And let's press enter.
Enter. Leaving menus. Add a video slide. 2 of 5.
All right. So now we've added the video and we've chosen to have it play automatically when the presentation is running and you get to that slide. Let's test this. I'm going to press F5, which is the keyboard command to start the slideshow.
F5. Slide 1 test presentation. Heading level 1 test presentation.
And here's slide 1. We press space to advance to the next slide. I want to show you how to access the JAWS
video.
basic training
level
content
1 video.
on your, and JAWS was speaking there
Slide
over that.
3.
Sorry about that. Just a little tip. If I was giving a presentation, let me press escape.
Escape. Presentation 1 PowerPoint.
If I was giving a presentation and I didn't want JAWS to speak, but I needed people to hear the sound, there's a feature called speech on demand. It's a JAWS feature and Fusion feature. You can press insert space and then S and it turns it on speech on demand. So if I go back to this slideshow by pressing F5.
F5. Slide 1 test.
All right, so we're on slide 1. I'm going to press insert space.
Space.
And you heard that little click there. That's a layered command that activates the command layer. I'm going to press S.
Speech on demand.
So now it's not going to speak when I press the space bar. I want to show you how to access the JAWS basic training content. And I just press space to select or to advance to the next slide there. But to turn full speech back on, you just use the same command, insert space, S.
Full speech.
Now, you're probably not always going to want to do that, but that is just a little tip. So, all right, so the video worked, it played when we got to that slide in the presentation. I can press escape.
Escape. Presentation 1 Power.
And we have exited presentation mode. And I'm just going to go ahead from here and press Shift F6 to go back to this thumbnails pane.
Shift F6. Slide thumbnails tab.
All right. Now let's see if you guys have any questions.
Meeting controls. Leaving ribbons. Alt S.
All right. So one question had come in earlier. I'm noticing that the keyboard command to insert a video isn't working. I press Alt N and V for video, but nothing happens. So any help troubleshooting for Rebecca?
Send an email, if you will, to training@vispero.com. That's training at V as in Victor, India, Sierra, Papa, Echo, Romeo, Oscar. I'd be very curious to know what's happening when you try that and what version of PowerPoint you're using. And there, might be able to help you troubleshoot that. We'll definitely see if we can get that working for you.
Guess what I would want to know is, like, if she's saying that nothing happens when she pushes
Right.
those, or that because it's still wanting you to do something after the V, you still have
Right.
to decide where the video is coming from.
Yeah. And another question too is sometimes if you press Alt and N together and then you press V and you hear a noise, try pressing Alt by itself and then pressing N and then pressing V. But yeah, like you said, Paul, then you have to make a choice of from this device URL or where you want to insert it from. But yeah, feel free to send us if none of those things fix it, feel free to send us an email.
Great. And one more question.
Sure.
Which ribbon contains the how videos are played option?
That is going to be a playback tab that shows up when you have inserted the video. So if you are on the video, if you are on the slide containing the video and you tab and you hear it say video, if you press the Alt key and you press right arrow, once you get to the end of those tabs, there's going to be one there. There can be a couple. I think there's a playback, and I think that's the one that you need. That is why I suggested using the keyboard commands, because sometimes it's a little hard to know where, when you're navigating through those ribbons, when to arrow, when to tab, when to enter.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Those are the only 2 questions in the chat at this time.
All right, let's talk about inserting hyperlinks. So just a couple of things about inserting a hyperlink. You can do it in a couple of different ways. You can insert the hyperlink just as the URL, which means that the actual web address is going to be on that slide in the presentation. And anybody reading that presentation would read the whole, address there, http:// and so forth. You can also hyperlink text that's in your presentation. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. It is often recommended if you're creating a presentation to, if you want to incorporate the most accessibility into a presentation, insert the hyperlink. Inserting that hyperlink as an actual URL is preferred, because then, the person reading it gets to see where that address is, where is it going to. However, I'm going to show you both ways of doing this. All right, so let me share my screen. Let's see. And I'm glad that worked, Rebecca. That's good. I'm glad that worked. Alt. So yeah, again, just as a side note here, if you're doing any of these keyboard commands and you press Alt N and then the letter V, or any of these, try separating those and pressing Alt by itself, then N, then V. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again here.
Mute. Current. Zoom. Zoom. Task switching. Meeting controls. Update your slide. Presentation 1 PowerPoint. Ready.
All right. So now we're back in the presentation, and I left off in the thumbnails pane here.
Slide 4. Insert hyperlink slide.
And I'm on the slide here for insert a hyperlink I created here. So I'm going to press F6 to move to that slide area.
F6, slide area, no selection.
And I'm going to press Tab.
Title placeholder, left, object placeholder.
All right, so I'm on the object placeholder. Now I am going to press Enter here so that I can actually type text.
Enter, edit.
And it said edit, so that lets me know that I'm in an area where I can type. Now, there are many ways here to, insert text or insert a URL. I'm just going to type this information here. I'm not going to type any additional information on these slides, but you would probably have additional information on your slide. So, for example, if I want to link directly to the Freedom Scientific training page, I could type something like this. I could type visit the Freedom Scientific training page.
4.
Or
more information.
More information. All right.
Enter.
Again, probably not something you would necessarily type by itself here on a slide, but all right. So I want to go up here and link Freedom Scientific Training. I want to link those words to the actual training page. By the way, this works no matter, it works in Word, it works in a lot of different areas in Microsoft Office.
Bullet, visit the Freedom Scientific training page for more information.
All right, so I'm going to locate the words Freedom Scientific Training, and I'm going to select them.
The Freedom.
All right, here's Freedom. So I'm going to hold down Control, Shift right arrow.
Selected, Freedom, selected, Scientific, selected, Training.
All right, so now that we have Freedom Scientific Training selected, and if you want to know if that text is selected, you can press Insert, Shift, down arrow.
Edit. Bullet, visit the Freedom Science, visit.
Oh, wait a minute, what happened?
The Freedom, selected, Freedom, selected, Scientific, selected, Training.
All right, I think I just pressed something I shouldn't have. I pressed Tab, I think.
Selection is Freedom Scientific Training.
And it just, okay, so yeah, Insert, Shift, down arrow will speak the text that is selected. All right, now that we know that we have the right text selected, let's press Control K, Kilo.
Control K, insert hyperlink dialog, address, edit combo.
All right, so from here you could paste a URL if you've copied it from a website, you could type it in. Let's just navigate through this dialog really quickly though. I want to point out a few things. So I'll press Tab.
Text to display, edit, Freedom Scientific Training.
So it knows what text I want to display because I selected it. If I hadn't selected it, if I hadn't typed it yet, for example, I could, instead of typing it and selecting it, I could just enter it here.
Screen tip ... button. Look in, combo box.
So I'm not going to tab through all this right here, but if you wanted to link to a file on your computer or, things like that, this is where you would choose where that file is located. So that brings me to the next point. I'm going to Shift Tab, which reverses navigation, to go back up here to where we can enter the URL, but I want to go one field above that.
Text to address, existing file or web page checkbox checked.
So here we have a few choices. We can link to an existing file or web page. So if you place that hyperlink in your presentation and you want it to open a file that the user has on their computer, that one gets a bit tricky because if it's not pointing to the right place, it can get tricky. But you can link to an existing file or web page, or if that file was out there on like OneDrive or Google Drive or something like that, you could link to it from there. And the user, if they had access to that file, would then be taken. It would open up that file and they'd be taken to it.
Place in this document checkbox checked.
So I press down arrow. There's an option to link to a place in this document. That's often used for things like creating a table of contents in Word, things like that.
Create new document checkbox checked.
Creating a new document, we don't want to do that.
Email address checkbox checked.
Email address. So if I was typing an email address, for example, training@vispero.com, this is what I would need to select. It needs to be pasted or typed in, but this needs to be selected. And just so you know this as well, whenever, like, let's say you do that, you go to insert an email address, then, maybe later on that day, you think, well, I need to insert a link in this document or this presentation. When you go to do that, email address will, whatever you selected last, in this case, email address will still be selected.
Existing file or web page checkbox checked.
Existing file or web page is what we want, and that is what is selected by default.
Address.
So if you don't need to change any of that information, you press Control K. This is where you're going to add the hyperlink. I'm going to go ahead and type it in.
// P E R F
There we go.
free call
All right, I'm going to press insert up arrow.
address edit combo https://freedomscientific.com/training.
And that I made a mistake, so let
And-
me fix that. All right.
G blank
All right, so for whatever reason, JAWS is
http://
all
G
right.
blank.
So let me just do it this way.
//
This is another
Freedom
reason
Scientific.
why
Period.
it's really good to paste a link to make sure you get it right. And I had copied something else to my clipboard. So I'm going to press enter.
Training. Enter. Content placeholder graphic.
All right. So now what happens is when I
Visit the link Freedom Scientific training page for more information.
read that information, you hear it say visit the link Freedom Scientific training page. Now, another thing you can do is you can navigate to where that text is linked,
The link Freedom.
and you can press Control K if you want to edit it.
Control K. Edit hyperlink dialog. Address. Edit combo. https://freedomscientific.com/training. Alt.
All right. I could copy. I'm going to copy this because we're going to need it again in a minute. So I'm going to press Control A. You can do this in the address bar of your browser too. And copy.
Nothing selected.
Oh.
Home.
All right. For some
Home.
reason, it's not letting me select it. That's okay. I don't need to,
Insert.
but I could. You could copy that information and paste it wherever you want.
Bullet.
Now, we also talked about just typing the URL or pasting the URL into the slide here so that somebody could actually read it as a URL. So if I just type it here,
Edit. Call NIART.
there we go. So from here,
Bullet https.
now if you just type it in, as you noticed, if you just type it in, it did not become a link. And so, and I wanted to show you that because that's one thing that we get a lot of questions about is, why isn't this a link? So what you would want to do in that case, instead of typing it directly on the slide,
Bullet home selected. Bullet copy select.
I'm just going to,
Bullet home select
I'm
blank.
going to get rid of it actually. All right, so I copied it. So from here, I could press Control K again.
Control K. Paste
And
it from
paste.
clipboard. Address. Edit combo https.
And there we go.
Enter. Insert hyperlink slide.
All right, so now we have two different, it's the same hyperlink, but with two different ways. We have it here as if I up arrow.
Visit the link Freedom Scientific training page for more. Misspelled information. Link home N-F-O-O-M-A-T-O-N period. Link miss enter. Edit.
There we go.
Bullet https //
And it says link. So that's how you know if it's actually a hyperlink. If it's not a hyperlink, then if you do a F5 to go to your slideshow and you're on that slide, then it's not going to actually be a hyperlink that takes you anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to press escape.
Escape selected. Bullet.
And that ding was to let me know that I did actually fix my spelling error there. So if I press F5, we're going to go back to the slideshow.
F5. Slide 1 test presentation.
And if I press space, it's going to go to slide 2, which is our video. And then if I press it again, it's going to go to the hyperlink slide. I want to
Slide 3.
And by the way, just so you know this as well, another little tip, if you want to go back a slide, you press backspace. All right.
Slide 3 in heading level 1 insert hyperlink. List of 1 items. Bullet visit the List end. Link freedom scientific training.
So it kind of isolates when you're reading it. It isolates those link freedom scientific training.
List of one page for more information. List link bullet HTTPS.
And there is the other link. And so if I go up here to the first one, either of these would work.
List page for list of one link freedom scientific training. R.
And I'm making sure
Romeo.
I'm on the R. I'm going to press enter.
Enter. Training freedom scientific Google Chrome Elizabeth. Training.
And there we are. It brought up the training page.
Training freedom scientific. Training center. Let's learn something new.
All right, so let's close that. But that is how you hyperlink to a website.
Alt F4. Ready. Free to freedom.
And like I said, you can do that with, I'm going to press escape to get out of the slideshow.
Escape. Presentation 1.
You can do that whether you are in Word, you can do it in PowerPoint, you can do it in a lot of different places.
Zoom.
So just to kind of recap, you just press, you can type the text, you can select the text, and you press Control K and type the URL or paste it. Or you can just press Control K and you can paste a URL. And then if you press enter, it will be listed in your slide as the URL, but it'll actually be a link. All right, so let's see if you guys
Alt S.
have any more questions.
Yeah, we've had a few come in.
Great.
So going back a little bit, what is the key for how videos are played?
Okay, that one is Alt J N U.
Great. The next question was someone is wanting to know how to select and copy these hyperlinks out of a Zoom chat with JAWS. Normal selection commands don't appear to work.
Right. What I would recommend there is when you up arrow to the message that has the hyperlink, there is a way to virtualize that in the JAWS virtual viewer, which is a little window that comes up and you have access to the text. You can read it, you can copy it and read it, it isolates it. So you can press Insert Shift V as in Victor. So if your focus is on that hyperlink, you hear JAWS read it, press Insert Shift V, and then it's going to be in that little area where you can then copy it using your selection, whatever selection command you use, and Control C. And then you press Escape to exit the viewer.
Great, because we got lots of good links in this chat.
Yeah.
And one final question. Do you go to the website first, select the address, and copy it to the clipboard? If you do that, why Control K?
Yeah, I like to do that, and I had done that, but I'd used my clipboard. That's why I had to type it in. I had done that, and I like to do that because you make sure you get everything that's included in that web address. So the reason you use Control K is because Control K allows you to insert that hyperlink into, for example, your presentation. So you've copied the address from the website. Now you go back to your presentation and you press Control K and you can paste it with Control V right into that box and you have the correct address. So that's why you use Control K.
Awesome. So those are all of the questions right now.
Okay.
Are we ready to go on to add alt text in the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, let me get my screen shared. Oh, sorry. Let me get my screen shared again. All right.
All right, so you may be familiar with alt text, especially JAWS users are, because that is a text used on web pages. It's used in in PowerPoint as well to describe images, things like tables, objects, anything that's a visual. You definitely want to add that alt text. And as a JAWS user, it's helpful to add that alt text when you use pictures and images and things, so that other users who are blind who use JAWS will also be able, to access that, who will know what that information is. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again here. And let's try that again.
Mute.
Okay.
Update your slide guide handout. Meeting control Zoom.
Place.
Presentation 1 PowerPoint.
There we go. All right. I have not titled this presentation, so I just entitled, it calls it presentation 1. And I'll press Insert T.
Title is Presentation 1 PowerPoint.
That is insert T as in tango. That reads your current window, the title of your current window. Okay, so I want to go to a blank slide here.
Object placeholder.
And I'm going to
Escape.
go back to that thumbnails pane by pressing Shift F6.
Shift F6. Slide thumbnails tab.
And let's down arrow to a blank slide.
Slide 4.
And I'm going to press F6 to go to the slide area.
F6. Slide area.
I'll tab the title,
Title placeholder.
enter,
Enter. Edit.
and I'll type Alt
Edit.
text, and I'm going to press Escape.
Escape. Selected.
All right, so let's tab to the object area.
Object placeholder.
And to do this, we need a picture. Now I'm actually going to add a shape here. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab on the ribbon by pressing Alt-N.
Alt-N. Upper ribbon. Insert.
And I'm going to tab.
Reuse slides. Menu. Table. Picture sub. Screenshots. Photo album. Menu. Shape submenu.
And let's go to Shape. I'm going to press space here.
Space. Leaving menus. Text box button.
All right, so all I did there is I pressed Alt-N and then I tabbed until it said Shape. And so here we have some options. Here we have text box. I'm going to tab. Or no, I'm not. I'm going to arrow.
Freeform. Scribble button.
That's one of those situations where if you're not sure which thing to do, if one doesn't work, you know you do the other. So in that case, I press tab, nothing happened. I will arrow down.
Line button. Rectangle button.
And I'm going to add a rectangle here. I'm going to press Enter.
Enter. Alt text slide. 4 of 5.
Now, of course, you know, where you really get into some detailed descriptions are when you have pictures, but in this case, we just have a rectangle. So now I can tab around here.
Title placeholder. Object placeholder. Rectangle. Rectangle is on top of object placeholder.
So we know it's a rectangle because Josh just told us, but let's just say we didn't. So now we can press either Shift F10 or the applications key to access a context menu, and then A to go to alt text. So I'm going to press applications key, then A.
Application. Leaving menus.
And let's see, where are we
Blank.
here?
Mark as description edit.
Okay, it didn't tell me that. All right, what happens is it brings up the alt text pane and it places you in the description box. So you can tab around here. You have
Mark as decorative checkbox not checked.
mark as decorative
Description edit.
and description. I apologize for that ringing phone in the background. So this is where you're going to want to add a description of the photo. This is where if it was an actual picture and you might include information like what people are doing in the picture. Maybe it's a group of people, maybe it's a picture of a scene, some scenic view or something like that. So that's the kind of information you're going to include. I'm just going to type something really simple here because, for time, and it's just a rectangle. So I'm just going to type, this is a rectangle.
This is a rectangle.
All right. So from here, we can press escape. That doesn't really close the alt text pane, but I'm going to press escape.
Escape. Alt text slide.
And let's tab around here.
Title placeholder. Level 1. Alt text. Object placeholder.
Now the object placeholders, of course, we could enter information on the slide.
Rectangle. Rectangle is on top of object.
All right, so we're back to the rectangle. So after you enter that alt text, you can press F6 and move around. You can go back to
F6. Description edit.
Right there. You can go back to the alt text slide, and then, the alt text pane. And then if you want to go back to your slide area, just press Shift F6, just like we do with the thumbnails tab in the slide area.
Shift F6, slide area.
All right, so just real quick, let's press F5.
F5, slide 1 test.
All right, and I'm going to advance. Let's find
slide.
The alt text slide.
Slide 4 alt text.
All right, so now if I down arrow here, I'm reading the slide.
This is a rectangle shape. This is a rectangle. Heading level 1. Slide 4. Slide 4.
We get information. So that's how you add alt text. I'll press escape.
Escape. Object.
That's how you
rectangle.
add alt text to a slide. And once again, highly recommend adding that because it is very, very helpful to those of us who are not able to see the screen.
Escape.
All right, so let's
update your slide. Meeting controls.
See what questions you guys may have.
We haven't had any questions come into the chat so far. So moving on to manage slide transitions.
All right, I do want to cover transitions just a bit. Transitions will add visual movement when you're changing slides during a presentation. You don't always need to use them, but they are something that makes it a little more exciting. You can also add sounds, and you can add them using the keyboard. So when you want to add a transition, you have to navigate to the slide that you want to transition to. So it's going to, be the one that you want to transition to, and then you're going to press Alt K. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and just briefly show you how to do that.
Mute.
All right.
Zoom. Presentation 1 PowerPoint.
So here we go. We're back in the presentation. I want to go back to the thumbnails tab because that's where I always go. Shift F6.
Shift F6. Slide thumbnails tab.
All right. And let's go down here to the next blank slide,
Slide 5.
which is slide 5. That's where I want to add the transition. I want it to be between the alt text slide and this one. And if I press Alt K,
Alt K. Upper ribbon. Ribbon tabs tab expanded. Transitions tab. Alt followed by K.
so here I'm on the transitions tab. I can tab here.
Transitions. Preview button unavailable.
We don't need to preview. Let's tab again.
Submenu. Transition effects button collapsed.
So here we have a submenu. We can expand it with the space bar.
Space. Transition to the slide toolbar. None button. Leaving menus. None button selected.
So here we have some effects we can choose, and it's on none. So if we down arrow,
Flash button.
we have flash.
Fall over button. Checkerboard button. Doors button. Checkerboard button.
Let's go to checkerboard. I'm not really sure what that one's going to do, but let's press enter here.
Enter. Slide 5.
All right, something else that's kind of fun that I want to show you, you can also do as a transition is a sound. So once again, we'll press Alt K,
Alt K. Upper ribbon.
and I'm going to tab.
Transitions. Submenu. Transition effects button menu. Effect options sub.
Oh wait, go back up here to transitions. I'm going to effects. I'm going to press space.
Space.
And I'm going to tab.
None button.
Oh, wait.
Escape.
Okay.
Upper.
So yeah, all right, so you have transition effects. I'm sorry. You just keep tabbing.
Escape.
I
Escape.
think I'm in the wrong
Title
place.
is
What do I have
presentation.
here? All right. Sometimes it's hard to know what's going on. All right. Alt K, but usually if you just hit escape and go back to square one.
Alt K. Upper ribbon.
All right. So now I'll tab.
Transitions. Preview button. Submenu. Transition effects button.
All right. So we've added an effect. Let's keep tabbing.
Menu. Effect options. Timing. Sound combo box.
You have a timing option that actually, it's set for like, I think 2 seconds or something like that. So it'll take that long to transition to the next slide. So here we have a sound combo box. Let's press space on this.
Space. List box.
And now we can choose a sound.
Stop previous sound. Applause button selected.
That one is interesting.
Arrow buttons.
It takes a while. I want to choose one that's a really short sound here.
Arrow button selected.
Let's see what this one is. Arrow. So we'll press enter.
Enter. Leaving menus. Slide 5.
So once again, just to recap, you press Alt K and you tab to the transition effects. You can choose an effect. Then you tab to sound and you can space there and choose a sound. All right, so I'm going to press F5. And this is going to take us to the slideshow.
F5.
And it should.
Escape.
All right, why is it not? Let's see.
Title is presentation 1.
All right, let's press F5 again.
F5. Slide 1 test.
Okay, so now we're in our presentation. We place the transition between slides 4 and 5. If I press space to navigate through these.
Slide 3 insert hyperlink.
And we go to 4.
Slide 4 all text.
And we go to 5. And we heard that little noise. And now
Slide 5.
And you see how long it took to get to slide 5. So I'm hoping that little animation thing or that effect worked there. But you heard that little sound that indicated that the transition was actually taking place. Now, if you want to remove those, you just go back to Alt K and under transition effects, you choose none, and under sound, you choose none. All right, so I'm going to press escape.
Escape. Presentation 1 power.
And let's see if you guys have any questions
Task
now.
switching. Meeting controls. Leave Alt S.
And I think we are up on a poll question.
Yes, we
Oh,
are
yes,
up on
I
that.
keep forgetting those.
And so add your questions to the chat as well as we go through this question. And we want to know, which keyboard command is it that's used to access the transitions tab? Which keyboard command will access the transitions tab? Your choices are Control plus Alt plus K, Control plus Shift plus K, Control plus K, or Alt plus K. How do we get to that transitions tab? Liz, we're just looking at Control Alt K, Control Shift K, Control K, or Alt K.
And while you're filling out that poll, we're going to ask a question that came into the chat.
Yeah.
Do transitions automatically go to the next slide, or do you still press page down to move slides?
Transitions are for when you're in slideshow mode. So and maybe I'm not understanding your question, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're in your slide area and you press page down, you're moving from slide to slide, that's going to take you, you do have to do that to actually go to the next slide. And I'm going to test that for you now. I'm here in, yeah. So if I pressed page up and it went to the alt text slide, if I press page down, it goes to slide 5. So that is just for when you're in presentation mode.
All right, I think that was the only question that came in. Forgive me if I've missed something. You can go ahead and paste it back in the chat. But looking at our poll question, which keyboard command is used to access the transitions tab? We tried to make this a little complicated. Your options were Control Alt K, that's what 4% of you believed. 14% said Control Shift plus K. 11% said Control plus K, and finally 71% said Alt plus K. Liz, which was the correct response?
Alt plus K.
Awesome. So majority got it right. We really tried to trip you up on that one. And I've ended that poll. And next slide up is using themes and animation.
All right. So themes are often used to give your presentation a unified look. Now, you don't have to use a specific theme. You can just use the default. But if you want to, you can choose a theme. You can apply it to one slide. You can select slides. You can apply it to all slides. Then animations are used just to add, a little bit of character to your slides sometimes. An animation is, definitely one of those visual things that you're going to add, but it kind of makes your, it can make your presentations more dynamic. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you how to do both here.
Mute.
All right.
Zoom. Update your slide presentation 1 PowerPoint.
All right. So we are here, and I'm pretty sure we're on slide 5, but let's go back up to that.
Shift
Thumbnails
F6.
pane.
Upper ribbon. Escape. Leaving menus. Slide 5. Slide notes.
Oops. All right. So I'm not sure where I am. I'm going to press F6.
F6. Slide area. No selection.
And I don't know what happened here. I'm going to press Shift F6.
Shift F6. Slide thumbnails tab.
There we go. So as a JAWS user, sometimes it's happened, there's so much going on within an application like PowerPoint that sometimes if you're not sure, you can just press F6. It'll tell you where you are. It'll go to the next item, but at least it tells you where you are. All right, so we're here.
Slide 5.
Slide 5. All right, so I want to add an I want to add a theme here. I can press, I think I'm going to add it just to slide 5. You could select slides. Now, how you do that in PowerPoint is the same way you select text. If you went up here to slides 4 and 5,
Alt text slide.
on the alt text slide, if I wanted to do that, I could press Shift down arrow.
Selected slides. Alt text slide. Slide 5.
And then once again, we can use that keyboard command I told you about earlier. That is Insert Shift down arrow.
Selected slides. Alt text slide. Slide 5.
All right. And if I want to add a theme here, apply a different theme, I can press Alt G, then H.
Upper. Leaving menus. Office theme button selected.
And in this case, I went ahead and pressed Alt by itself, then G, then H. So here we have some themes, and you can down arrow to the one that you want to use.
GH. Office theme button. Wisp loading preview but. Gallery loading preview. Vapor trail loading preview button.
So let's go ahead and do vapor trail. Now, if I were to press enter here, it would apply this to the selected slides that I have. But let's press, you can either press Shift F10 or the applications key to right click it to go to the context menu.
Applications. Title text box graphic.
And we can down arrow.
Menu. Apply to selected slides.
So here we have apply to selected slides.
Delete .
Delete.
Set as default theme.
Set as your default theme.
Add gallery to quick access tool. Apply to all slides.
You can apply it to all slides. So you have a lot of different options here. So if I wanted to apply this theme here, I'm not going to do that because I'm really not sure what this theme looks like. And I'll get to that here in just a second. But here I could press, well, let's go ahead and press enter.
Enter. Leaving menus. Presentation 1 PowerPoint.
And there we go. And it should apply that theme to all of those slides. All right. So for animations,
insert alt text slide 5.
Okay, so for an animation, we actually need to go to the slide area. I just did that from the slide thumbnails pane, but I'm going to press F6.
F6, slide area.
And I'm going to tab.
Title placeholder.
And I'm going to give it a title.
Enter, edit. Edit. Themes. Escape.
And I'm going to tab over here to the object level area.
Object placeholder.
All right, so now if I want to go ahead and insert an animation here, I can press Alt A.
Upper ribbon.
Followed by A and A.
Leaving menus, appear button.
And now I have a list of animations. So I can down arrow.
AA, white button, zoom button, pulse button.
And you can also arrow across here too.
Color pulse button, teeter button, spin button, random bars button.
So let's enter on random bars here.
Enter. Theme slide, 5 of 5, no selection.
And if I tab here.
Title placeholder, object placeholder, title placeholder, object placeholder.
You'll notice that that animation is probably there, but it's not something that you're going to encounter when you tab. All right, so let's see if you guys have any questions.
Meeting controls.
And no, wait, we don't have a poll. We have one more poll question, but not right now. So let's see if you guys have any questions.
Alt S.
No questions right now in the chat.
Okay, well, we have a bonus. I'm going to show you one more thing today and tell you a little bit about what that is. And then I just want to make a couple of comments about things that you need to know if you're a JAWS user and when you're creating presentations. So I'm going to share my screen again then.
Mute, currently unmuted, Alt plus A button.
All right, so slide sorter.
Zoom, presentation 1 PowerPoint.
This is a great feature that will allow you to, it allows you to view your slides as thumbnails, but you can actually arrow through the slides and see how they are going to be presented during your presentation. It might be more of a visual thing. You think, well, if I use JAWS, why am I going to use that? But it will actually give you a great idea of what order your slides are going to be presented in. Again, it's very similar to the thumbnails pane because you can move things around, you can copy things and manipulate your slides like that. But I just wanted to mention this. And if you press Alt W, let's see.
Alt W, upper, leaving menus, no selection.
All right, so now if I press F6.
F6, alt text. F6, toolbar, F6, upper ribbon, F6, leaving menus, theme slide, 5 of 5.
And that's how we know that we don't have a slide area. If you notice, it did not say
F6, alt text.
Slide area.
Shift F6, theme slide.
So it says theme slide 5 of 5. If I up arrow.
No selection, add a video slide, 2 of 5.
So these are actually in like a grid. I like to use my right and left arrow keys. So if I press left arrow.
1, test presentation slide. 2, add a video slide. 3, insert hyperlink slide. 4, alt text slide. 5, Theme slide.
So let's say I want to move the theme slide. I think, that doesn't really go logically there. I'm just going to cut it with Control X.
Cut selection to clipboard. No selection. 3, 4, alt text slide. 4, alt text slide.
And even if you keep pressing right arrow, it's just going to keep repeating that last item. So let's go back here.
3, insert hyperlink slide. No selection.
I want to put it before alt text. So I'm going to paste it here with Control V.
Pasted from clipboard. No selection.
And let's press left
Theme
arrow.
slide. Use destination theme
Oh,
grid.
let's press escape to get rid of that
Escape.
paste recovery.
Escape. 3, insert hyperlink slide. 4, theme slide. 5, alt text slide.
And if I like that order, maybe that's more logical, then I can press Alt W.
Alt W.
L.
Upper ribbon.
Alt W followed by L as in Lima.
Leaving menus. Alt text slide. 5 of 5.
And now we're back.
L. No selection.
Let's
No
press
selection.
Shift F6.
Shift F6. Slide thumbnails tab.
And
Alt,
now we
alt
have,
text. Escape. Escape.
sorry about that. JAWS is very busy at the moment. So now we're back in our thumbnails tab and we can up and down arrow.
Theme slide. Alt text slide.
And we have our alt text slide. And if we press F6,
F6. Slide area.
we get
No
the slide area. So once again, it's Alt W and then I to go to the slide sorter view, and then Alt W and then L to go back to your normal view. So just a couple of things before I definitely want to take more of your questions. Just a couple of things I want to mention. If you're a user or if you're teaching a user who is totally blind, who has never seen before, and you're creating PowerPoint presentations, it is absolutely, it's actually recommended. I was going to say it's absolutely fine to ask someone who is sighted. In fact, I recommend it. Ask someone who is sighted, what themes should I use? What themes look good for this presentation? Or what animations would be appropriate for this presentation? And always, definitely have someone sighted look at your presentation after you create it, so that you know that everything is in order, you know that everything is the way it should be on your slides. And with that, let's see what questions
meeting
you guys
controls. Alt S.
And this is time for the final poll question as well. So we'll throw that
Yes.
out there as we go through any additional questions that you may have.
I forget about these every time. And I write them down. I know where they go. Okay, sorry.
No
All right,
worries.
so what is the keyboard command for accessing slide sorter view? Slide sorter view, how do we get there? Is it Alt plus W, then S, Alt plus W, then I, Alt plus W, then L, Alt plus W, then O? Which way do we get into slide sorter view? Alt plus W, then S, Alt plus W, then I, Alt plus W, then L, Alt plus W, then O.
And we have
And
had
we'll take
some
questions if we come in.
Yes, we've had a few questions come in. First off, can you add alt text to your animations? And can you add sounds to those?
You could add sounds. I don't believe you can add alt text to an animation because you really can't get to it on the screen. There may be a way, but I don't believe so, because those are usually moving things, aren't they? Usually, or am I wrong about that? Are they not always moving?
Animations, yeah, there's usually at least there's some moving component.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There might be a way, I'll have to look into that. I don't think so though. I know though that you can add sounds. So while you might not be able to add sound to the animation itself, you can add a sound to your slide. You can insert it so that when the person is navigating through slideshow mode, and incidentally, if if I'm reading a presentation, that's usually how I'm going to read it, because I want to know if there's a video, if it starts playing, I want to know if there's sounds. And so that sound is going to play whenever that slide comes up, and, but it would not be attached to the animation. I hope that answered the question.
All right, next question was, my student has difficulties moving shapes around or formatting them on a slide. Any suggestions?
Yeah, that's one of those things that there are keyboard commands for doing those things. I'd like to, if you can email us at training@vispero.com, give us a little more information about what types of difficulties a student is having, and then we can get you some keyboard commands and information there. Yeah, so that's training@Vispero. That's Victor, India, Sierra, Papa, Echo, Romeo, Oscar.com. Yeah, thanks.
Great. And I've dropped that in the chat. And then
Great.
Debbie, I'm having a bit of trouble reading your question. If you don't mind rewriting it, we're looking at a key command for, and it's possibly slide sorter, but just want to make sure. Other than that, no questions. So while we're waiting on Debbie, I'm going to review our poll question. Again, we tried to trick you with this one. What is the keyboard command for accessing slide sorter view? Alt plus W, then S, Alt plus W, then I, Alt plus W, then L, or Alt plus W, then O. Majority said either Alt plus W, then I, or Alt plus W, then S. What was the correct response, Elizabeth?
Alt plus W, then I.
Awesome. So that was a tricky one. So Debbie,
Yeah.
that should answer your question for slide sorter, that keystroke Alt plus W, then I. All right, so I'm going to end that poll. And let's see, we've got 6 minutes left in this presentation, so plenty of time to answer a few more questions. I'm going to hand it back over to Paul to wrap us up. But again, if you've got questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
Okay, so let's talk about what we have discovered today. We've discovered the thumbnails tab. It's a really great way to go through, navigate your presentation, move slides around, copy slides, delete slides easily, all in that thumbnails pane. You can embed videos into your slides. You can decide when they play. You can do the same with the URL. You can hyperlink it to a slide. It's allowing your viewer to directly access a web page right through that slide. Adding alt text to images on slides really makes them much more accessible for JAWS users, so they know that there's something there of importance, not just that it's a shape or just whatever it is that you have up there. We want to know what you've put on your slide. We don't want to just hear that it's a shape or that it's picture 7 or whatever. We want to know what exactly it is that you have included. So please use the alt text. And our final slide that we want to remind you of are the annual license that APH offers in conjunction with Vispero. An annual license for JAWS is $90. An annual license for Zoom Text is $80. We also do have the suite available if you want to get Fusion. Contact APH customer service if you have questions about those things. Search for those on the website. We'd be happy to take care of your needs there if you need a license for JAWS, or if you need Zoom Text or Fusion. Anything else you want to tell us, Liz?
All right. Yeah, once again, just that, PowerPoint is very visual, and there are a lot of different areas that you can be in. So if you navigate away and you come back, if you're trying to figure out where you are on a slide, or if you are in the slide area, if you press tab, you can navigate that slide area. If you press F6, you can navigate to the different areas in PowerPoint, for example, the slide area and the thumbnails tab. And I think we had a couple of questions.
Yeah, there were some questions about where you got your JAWS voice. And someone shared in the chat that if you go to the voices dialog in JAWS menus with Alt plus V, you can add or remove voices. But does your voice, what's the name of it?
The one I'm currently using is called Ava, and you can add her. And yeah, if you want specific information on that, feel free to shoot us an email and I'll walk you through that step by step.
Yeah, and that's again at that training@vispero.com. I'll drop that again in the chat. And another question, can you explain about how you would make a PowerPoint more accessible after a sighted person has created the PowerPoint? This is a really great
that's a
question. I'd love
good
to know the
question.
answer to this.
I think in that situation, for example, if you needed to add alt text to an image or a table or something, you could do it that way. You could go in if you knew what the picture was, you could add the alt text. And things like reading order, you can go into the selections pane and change the reading order. And that's a great question. We could do an entire webinar on just creating accessible PowerPoint presentations. So
And if you go into that toolbar that you showed us, Liz, at the beginning,
yes,
right next to the one thing you clicked on is an accessibility checker.
right. Yep.
I would absolutely start there. It's not going to fix everything, but it's going to remind you of a lot of things. So
Yeah, like Paul said
note.
it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Jeff has dropped in a course from the Hive on creating accessible
Yeah.
PowerPoint. So definitely visit APH's Hive to check out that content. But yeah, definitely important material for everyone
Right.
to know how to make those accessible PowerPoints.
And of course, it's critical to know what makes accessible, because like Paul said, the accessibility checker will catch some of it, but not all of it. So, you would definitely want to check out that course.
Absolutely. And I hear the birds on Paul's end, which means that it's time for us to wrap up. So thank you guys for attending. I'm going to drop the ACV REP link in again. Your closing code is material, MATERIAL, material. I have made sure that this course is added to that form, so you should be able to go in and collect your ACV REP credit for update your slide guide. You've got Liz's email, training@vispero.com, to send any future webinar questions or ideas for content. And thanks to Jeff for dropping in that link on creating accessible PowerPoints that is currently living on the APH Hive. If you're not aware, APH not only does these live webinars, we also have an asynchronous learning platform called the Hive, where there's lots of great content you can check out. So many thanks to Elizabeth Whitaker and Vispero for always having some great content to share with our audience. And thanks to ACS Captions for making this an accessible webinar. All right, we are ready to wrap up. So thanks everyone for attending.
All right. Thanks, guys, as always.
Yes, thank you. This has tested my PowerPoint and screen sharing abilities more than any other webinar. It was every minute. It was like, share, don't share, share, don't share. So yeah, it was a good test for me as well.
It was fun. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and thank you.
Right.
And if you need any other questions, I was taking them down from the chat today. If you want to follow up with any, or
yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good lunch if that's where you are in the world today. If it's also 1 o'clock for you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. All right. I've got the transcript and we're out. Thanks, everyone.